Hello there, very happy Friday. How are you doing? I hope you've had a great week, and thank you so much for stopping by to check out another episode of The Green Pill. Yes, it's a place where every Friday a normal guy who's just really into health and performance content brings to you a data source and an action tip for anyone out there who's motivated to help make a positive change in their lives. And every episode focuses on one of my 6 key pillars to good health, that being sleep, movement, nutrition, meditation, people, and purpose. Now, this week we're still hanging out amongst the spiritual pillars and moving on to pillar number 5, that being people. And this week's data source is Julia Samuel. She is a 30-year experienced psychotherapist and the author of the new book, Every Family Has a Story, that I am reading right now. And I'm sure no one will be surprised to hear that families play a very big, important part in our life and in our lives. And Julia mentions that there isn't a single patient in her 30 years of experience that hasn't come into her therapy room and talked extensively about families. As she says, they're our greatest source of both joy and pain. And our families are wired into us, like at a genetic level, and even our senses are finely attuned when we're young, and it really impacts the way we will live our lives today. And one thing that Julia highlights that I wasn't aware of is how our family's unresolved traumas can impact us even so today, how they can actually be passed down even through generations. There's research right now to suggest that can happen via the womb. And she highlights a really extraordinary, extreme example of an Auschwitz survivor and working with her entire family, and how even 4 generations later, you could still see things like how they all hated wearing stripes, how they all reacted very badly to dogs barking, and how they all had strenuous relationships with food. So it's really mind-blowing stuff to see how impactful this can be on our lives today. I don't think it's something that's very commonly known. And I think it makes it so important that we need to really understand our family's history to know ourselves, and so that we can do this work to process these unresolved traumas. And I think we're very lucky. We're very lucky that we have this awareness, we have this psychological data now that we can do this work. And I think it's so important that we do, because it, 1, stops it being passed down to the next generation, and also 2, allows us to clear any emotional blocks that we have that's hindering our lives and causing us pain right now, both physically and psychologically. And I think in terms of action points for this week, that there can only be one, and that's do some digging into your family history. How well do you know your own family? And even if you think you do, dig a bit deeper and maybe ask some more difficult questions. And one great advice from Julia to follow is ask difficult questions in comfortable environments. So in a non-threatening way, perhaps do it while you're going for a walk with a family member or cooking together, etc. And I think it's so important to do this work, and there's nothing that's going to feel more uncomfortable than this type of emotional healing work. But in my experience, actually this kind of emotional healing is the single most impactful physical health healing. And there's nothing that's going to feel worse, but there's nothing that's going to make you feel better after it and help you ultimately thrive in life. So it's a little bit different this week, but I hope that was helpful. And do feel free to connect and let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Have an excellent weekend, and remember to stack the odds in your favor and feel good now.